We are recording in 3, 2, 1, and we're on. This is SHB Unfiltered, the podcast. Episode number, what, Chris?
34.
34, which means we have been running, live streaming, recording, podcasting, and chatting for 34 consecutive days during lockdown. Because if we weren't doing this, Chris, what would we be doing?
Potentially holding back.
Potentially. Well, I could be rewatching Tiger King again.
Nah.
One of the two.
One was enough for that.
One of the two. Do you know what? When this is over, I'm going to look back, like every time it hits 6:15, 6:30 in the evening, I'm going to be thinking, man, we should be podcasting right now. I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, to be honest, at 6:15, I'm probably going to log on to Zoom and be like, oh no, what's going on? No, just
let me in the room.
So, but you still be podcasting at least twice a week, right?
Is that in order? Because we will carry on the podcast.
Okay.
Don't worry, everyone. But let's cross that bridge when it comes to it. Today, my name is Ruben Pillai. What is every day? But we have CJ Christopher Jackson, the co-host, co-pilot, lieutenant, captain.
Today,
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say today, my name is Chris Jackson, and every day it's Chris Jackson as well.
Sweet. We've got one of our resident part-timers, AOD Adesanya. And I believe the D stands for Daniel, right?
D stands for Daniel. It's good to be back on the podcast. It's been a while.
Fantastic. So I've got three musketeers here, power of three, the triad. So today we're gonna have a really good podcast, I reckon. But Chris knows. Why is this podcast special? Because this is the line I always have to plug. Why is it special? And I think I probably said it the majority of the time, but Chris, you should know by now why this podcast is different. That's your cue to talk.
Because we've got AO back.
No, because we are the only podcast featuring people
that stutter.
Podcasting when and how often? Every day
at 6:15, live on Facebook or YouTube, depending on Facebook's availability to let us live stream.
Definitely. So we're probably the only people who started podcasting every day in the world. I did some research and I think we are. So how does that make you feel?
Is that a question for me or Chris?
For Chris at the moment, because you just come back, so you probably don't feel any different. So how does that make you feel, Chris?
Feels great. It feels like a big achievement. Committing to something and seeing it through is always a very satisfying feeling. And I look forward to at least another 2 weeks worth of daily podcasts, because we've got another 2 weeks of this lockdown. It will be reviewed. If it's reviewed, we will be continuing every day, right, Ruben?
When he said we had another 2 weeks, I felt a bit sad then. I was like, wait, what? We only 2 weeks. We need to double down, do 2 a day, because that's just the way I felt. And just a quick one for you specifically, Chris. Before we started, when I kicked off the Zoom and we were just talking, I was in the kitchen with Aranda, and she was like, wait, who's that? And I said, oh, is this Chris? And he goes, oh, he seems a lot more like live and hyped up now and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's what podcasting does to you. It like reveals your inner beast. Your confidence shoots up and you just feel a bit more loose. So there's a bit of feedback for you, Chris.
Cheers, Aranda. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much to Aranda. Now, before we kick off with the formal talking points, I have to ask you both, how have your days been? Let's go with AO first, because it's been a while.
Want to know the answer to that?
Well, no, wait. Forget that particular question. How has the last 2 or 3 weeks been? And you can be as balanced as you want, as honest as you want. Go for it, dude. Go on.
The last 2 weeks have been pretty up and down. Lots of things happening in my personal life. So my nan died a few days ago. Before that, lots of other stuff had happened. I'm also actually working on my speech in a more aggressive way now. So I'm going back to basics as I've been complacent. So being on the podcast is a bit of a challenge right now. And I'm just trying to enjoy the process of getting back to a level where I'm happy with in terms of working on my speech.
I was actually telling Chris, sorry, about the phone calls that we're planning in the morning where we go through Redefining Stuttering by John Harrison and just read sentences as to time to each other and try to get through the book. And I was telling Chris about it. And he felt a bit left out, you know. Chris felt a bit left out.
I did feel a little bit left out. However, news is that me and Leo are starting our own reading club, guys. So you can have your reading club. Me and Leo will have our own reading club. But no, on a serious note, it's a really great idea. And I'm actually really looking forward to starting it.
It's good you
Really good.
said that. You said that because me and Leo had a reading club actually before you had a reading club with him.
Yeah, I'm taking him off you, man.
Yeah. I've told him Chris has more commitment in that area, so speak to Chris, and it's a good job you took him on for now. Thank you.
You reckon at some point we can do a 4-way one through Zoom, and we all pull up the same page and just read out different bits. Like, say if you got like a particular bit or particular chapter that you feel is powerful, we can go through it together with Leo as well. What do you think, Leo? Put in the comments. Go on.
It's a great idea.
To do it personally. I'm very happy to do it personally.
Cool. Easy. Chris, how was your day?
I haven't really got much to report today, Ruben. Not too much has happened. Yeah, just had a coaching call today. Won't go into any names, but had a coaching call today. And that's about it. Just done a little bit of ad hoc work and ad hoc work on other projects that I've got going on. But the podcast is the highlight of my day. So let's get cracking. How was your day, Ruben, as it goes? No one's asked you.
That's what I was waiting for. But I would have brought it up anyway. To be honest, it wasn't too eventful. I went for a nice walk at lunchtime for about half an hour. Usually now I'm up pretty early doing work just to free up a bit more time later on the day and stay on top of things, which is good because it's so easy to just stay in bed for as long as possible, but it's really not good for you. And I'm the type of person who has to be up if the sun's up. I struggle to stay in bed or like kind of sleep if the sun is up. So with sunrise getting brighter and earlier, it suits me very, very well. But yes, Leo dropped a comment, but Ayo left me, lol. So I needed to find a new partner, aka Chris. Just kidding. Ayo is busy, and we know Ayo is very busy. So we are lucky to have him here today. And today's topic of discussion is it's kind of general, but we can relate it back to stuttering if you feel that you have examples and maybe personal stories. But are we as people, and I say we because I could say people in general, but I'm going to put myself in the mix as well. Are we as people naturally judgmental? Go on, CJ. I see the cogs turning.
Are we as people naturally judgmental? I think yes, but I think by going through adversity, it can change that. I think that judgmental sounds so negative, but it's not always a negative thing. It's observant as well. But I think as a whole, yes, people can be judgmental, but what are they judging you for? Are they judging you to help you improve, or are they judging you to try to put you down? What angle are you coming at here, Ruben?
I might rephrase that slightly, but are people more likely to form a positive opinion of someone or a negative opinion of someone? So are you more likely to notice like small negative things as opposed to small positive things in people? Because you can like think of so many people and pick out like really good positive things that they do, but they're normally kind of like extreme positive actions, like doing voluntary charity work or kind of like doing like grand gestures. However, we are quick to actually maybe judge on smaller, more subtle negative things than smaller, subtle positive things. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
how to just complicate it a bit more?
It makes sense, but it's a complicated question to answer, because the cop-out answer is it depends on the person, because there's people that focus on the good in people and there's people that focus on the negative in people. But
and that could be it. So are people plural more likely to focus on the negative than the positive?
I genuinely find that when people have low self-esteem, they look for other negatives in other people so that it makes them feel better about themselves. I've seen people do it with my own eyes. I'm not saying that that's for everyone that has low self-esteem. I'm saying that can be another characteristic. But it's a very difficult question to answer, Ruben. That is a difficult question, because that question can go on forever. You know.
Thing is, right? If you say it like that, if you a person with high positive self-esteem than with low negative self-esteem, then kind of you will either go in those two directions. However, do you think there are a lot more people with low self-esteem than high?
Yeah.
And therefore, by that logic, there'll be more people looking for negatives than for positives just because of how they feel. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And the reason why I thought I'd bring it up is because a big part of the process of WOMS, and for anyone listening on, WOMS is working on my speech, which is a mentality that we adopt for Stop Holding Back. It kind of underpins any technique you can have. And we try to encourage people to let go of that feeling of being judged. But if it's obvious that judgment is all around us and people are often looking for negatives to pick at, and not even like to blatantly directly pick at, but just they may hold inherently, then how do we actually get that message across to people? With saying, oh, it doesn't matter what people think, but sometimes it couldn't matter in some situations.
Yeah, it's how you deal with that judgment or that criticism. It's how you respond to it. You can't control the judgment, right? You can't control what somebody else thinks of you. If you're being your authentic self, you can't control how others feel towards you. Yeah, you can try and be something that you're not. You can try and come across as fluent when you're not, to perhaps get a better judgment, or you think you are going to get a better judgment. But it's how you respond to that judgment. Are you allowing that to affect you? Are you allowing that to affect your self-esteem? Or are you not? Are you working on yourself? Do you know what your mission is? Do you know what you're trying to improve on yourself, so that you can block that out? Because judgment's always going to be there. Always. There's someone out there that will say Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't think he's a good football player.
That's Chris Papacosta, probably.
It could be Chris Papacosta, but no, it's not. But there will be one person out there that has that judgment. But it's how does that judgment affect you? There's people out there that they will get 9 really good feedback, 1 negative bit of feedback, and that will crush their whole confidence. So they'll completely dismiss the other 9 that say they're brilliant, and they'll just focus on that 1. So it's how you respond to it.
I'm going to actually throw this one to AO, but specifically frame it in a different way. AO personally, he does so much work within the world of stuttering in terms of raising awareness and helping people. And Chris, like, you can back me up on this. I'm not exaggerating where he's a worldwide figure in the stuttering community. Like, you say his name and people start smiling.
Yeah.
Now, is there a reason that he doesn't get that same appreciation from the powers that be? Because from what I've seen, he's done so much positive actions, so many positive actions within the world of stuttering. However, do you feel that he doesn't get the kind of the love that he should kind of get? But even if that's not what he's seeking, he gets the opposite sometimes. And I'll probably let AO answer that question specifically, because it is relating to him. So I could see you about to talk, Chris, and see like all these thoughts are ready to go. So what do you think, AO? Do you agree with that assessment, or do you have your own opinion?
I want to hear what Chris thinks first, if that's okay. If that's
Go for it.
I remember being in a specific environment. I remember not knowing AO for too long, but AO helped me out a lot. And I was in a bar in a specific group, and the feedback, one person said, and I overheard them, they didn't say it to me, I overheard them, they said, okay, if AO's doing great work, why don't AO just do his great work quietly? Why does he have to sing from the rooftops? So I said to him, why should he do his work quietly? And the guy didn't know what to say. So that is a negative judgment that had no real substance behind it.
Dude, someone sounded like they were sipping on the haterade, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's straight up hate, man. That's hate.
It was like, we are all in the stuttering community. AO is putting himself out there to help people. He's offering his help. What are you doing? Are you doing anything to help the wider stuttering community? No. So how can you criticize someone that's prepared to do that? I can't see the logic in it. And I think that people want to see you do well as long as they're still doing better than you. And I think with Ayo, he came out of nowhere and he was doing really good things. And he created this buzz around him really quickly. And people could have potentially thought, well, 1 minute, I've been in the Stuttering community for 10 years. This guy comes 2 minutes and everybody knows who he is, and people might not like that. And I feel like that's the vibe I got off of the individual that made that comment. But he didn't know I was listening on, and he didn't expect me to say anything back.
I've actually seen this before, and you might laugh, but where I've seen it before, you've seen the entire cycle of the rise, the celebration, the success, the fall, the comeback, and still like in the mix. But Conor McGregor, because he literally had that same splash when he came in. Within a year, he was headlining and selling out arenas, and all the other fighters were trying to work out how is this guy doing it. And the buzz followed him around because he already had a strong following from Dublin, and he got a lot of jealousy from people, and everyone was waiting for him to fail. Now, if you look at interviews now when people talk about him, same people they were interviewing before, these guys are still undercard fighters. They were undercard fighters then, complaining about his rise. Now the undercard fighters still here now, and their tune has changed, completely changed, because Conor McGregor worked out, look, like for me to actually make a success, make a splash, and do what he's done, he had to do it a certain way. And just because people don't like it, they want you to conform to what the status quo is. Like, that's not how it should be, because everyone has their own opportunity to be whoever they want to be without harming people or being vindictive. You can be who you want to be and achieve something. You don't just have to fall in line. Ayo, go on. Chris has said his piece.
Nice. I guess for a long time, the Stuttering community was not really doing much in terms of their impact, in my opinion. I've always seen myself as being in a different place to where I was. I've always thought I could achieve more than I was achieving at the time. And I just wanted to help people in a different way, especially when I joined that program. And there was a lot of people who had been there for like 10 years and they were still peddling the same information, preaching things that don't work, pretending to do one thing in public, but they're doing another thing in private. And their speech wasn't great when it counted. And I just thought, you know what, I need to make a difference here. And I put myself on the line. I gave a lot, and then things just happened. I think with me, what really helps me out is my honesty. So right now, 2020, my speech is not great right in this moment because I've not been aggressively or proactively been working on my speech for a very long time. And I have a lot of excuses for that, but in my mind, being the person I am, I don't see them as excuses. It's just life, and life happens to you, but that's not an excuse to work on your speech. And because I'm a bit controversial and direct, and I, in general, don't care what people think, a lot of people who don't have a voice, they see themselves in me, or they think like I'm talking for them. I'm actually saying the truth about stuttering, about you don't have to accept stuttering out of control. You don't. And if someone tells you you do, that they're liars. and they don't have your best interests at heart. And that's what I believe, and that's never going to change for no one. And because I'm like that, you either love me or you hate me, and I'm fine with both. That's not that. What people think about me is none of my business. I just do what I feel is right, and that's it.
Fantastic, AO. And I think that's kind of one of the hardest mentalities to adopt, especially when you are working on your speech and someone with a clear speech impediment, is carrying on without actually worrying what people think. Because like Chris can vouch as well, but even starting this podcast, the amount of questions in the background we've got from certain people within organizations and emails we have received and different types of things, that's not going to stop us from carrying on this, because what is like 2 or 3, maybe on the more negative types of feedback, from tens to hundreds of positive things from people who've seen it, got comments and likes and loves and interacting on the various platforms, and they continue to actually show us that appreciation, because what we're doing here is it's never been done before, and because of the situation we are in with the coronavirus, it probably won't be done again as well for a very, very, very long time. This consecutive day of consecutive podcasts every single day. Now, I just want to shift attention slightly. However, sticking on the same point, similar to what AO was talking about just now, what would you tell anyone who's worried about what people may think about their speech? And by people, I don't strictly mean just people in outside, whether they've been in school or university and work, and judgment from regular people, the normal kind of judgment that we get. But there's a slightly more complex type of judgment. It's a bit more insidious, I'd say, as well, from other areas of the stuttering community. How would you best advise them to like hold their ground and actually carry on what they want to do?
Is that for me or Chris?
Whichever one. Just don't hold back, dude. Go on.
I can go.
All right.
I've got a little small story. When I first started working on my speech again, I remember going into a certain environment and I was talking to someone and I didn't like the way I was received by them, and I didn't feel it was necessary. And I always had this perception that if I've got a stutter and the other person's got a stutter, we naturally will get on because we're both experiencing the same struggle. And I remember coming out of that room, talking to AO and saying, listen, I had a bit of a bad experience there. I wasn't happy with how that went. I didn't think that person was a very nice person. And AO goes, what? Do you think just because someone's got a stutter, they're not capable of not being a nice person? And I was like, oh, okay. I just automatically assumed that everyone would be nice, everyone would be welcoming, everyone would like me and accept me just because I've got a stutter. And I quickly realized that that wasn't the case. And AO was quite influential in telling me to snap out of it. You're not here for that person. You're not here for their judgment. You're here for your improvement. So come here, get what you need out of it, and go and use it in the real world where it matters to you. And I think if you can adopt that mentality, then you can block that out. And that's how I would approach it. That's the advice that I would pass on to anyone else, because it worked for me and it made me realize you do not have to worry about that because you're not depending on anyone in that community. And that is key.
Just want to summarize that story. So you're essentially saying, take what works, discard the rest, take what you need. And if people aren't going to help you on your journey, then you have to say goodbye to them at some point. But so that's the advice for anyone out there. Forget about kind of what they think. Just go there, do what you need to do for yourself, and go home. Apply it where it counts.
Yeah, exactly. And this is part of the reason why I never felt the need to make friends with people with stutter. That sounds really harsh or negative, but I don't care. It's not about the stutter. My stutter is not me. I am not my stutter. I care about people. I care about getting to know the person for who they are. So I've never gone out of my way to make friends with people just because they stutter. I think that's ridiculous. And what will happen eventually, if you just try and make friends with everyone who stutters, you will get very disappointed and put yourself in a prison because all your friends are people who stutter, and you're not going to have experiences where you can actually communicate effectively with people who don't stutter, because you've surrounded yourself with people who just stutter. It's very dangerous and it's not helpful. Only 1% of the world's population stutter. So why are you going to surround yourself with just people who stutter? Because you're afraid, in my opinion, to do the real stuff, to go out there and create a life that you desire. And because you don't believe in yourself or believe you can do that, you stick to the stuttering community. So that's why I've never really tried to be a part of any stuttering community. I've always tried to be focused, be on point, get what I need, and disappear. And help people who stutter like me, who want to do the same. You don't just want to join a community and stick there for life and stay at a plateau and not achieve anything in life.
Thank you. Chris, do you agree, disagree? Want to add?
I agree to a certain extent. I have made I've made a few very good friends in the stuttering community, but I agree with Aya. We are not good friends because I have a stutter and that person has a stutter. That's not a factor in the friendship. So it goes more than that. And that's why I haven't got a lot of friends in the stuttering community. Because, to be honest, I haven't got enough time to invest in everyone, to get to know everyone inside out the way I have with my core network of people that have helped me. But out of those people, I've created lifelong friendships, I believe. And it's because it goes beyond what we're working on. It goes beyond just working on speech. There's other factors, there's other aspects of the friendship that is completely so far away from speech that's what is building the real friendship. It's not just because I'm trying to do a block let go and you're trying to do a block let go. That's not why we're friends. There's other things. So I do agree with Aya to a certain degree, but I wouldn't completely dismiss it because I have made some friends for life in the stuttering community.
Really, really good. Really, really, really good. And when you have that kind of correct people around you, then you can grow a lot. However, there are people who still surround themselves with people who are kind of judging them and I guess restricting growth. And in that respect, I think we can all reflect on kind of our different paths and think, yeah, maybe at some point in my life, in this period in school or university, you may have associated yourself with certain people for an amount of time, but they weren't aiding your growth. They were actually restricting your growth. They were over judgmental, which stopped you from actually living outside of your comfort zone. So going forward, I have seen examples of people within the stuttering community, actually finding themselves associated with people restricting their growth, restricting to a point where they are afraid of actually opening up to them about their actual issues. This is the actual danger with judgment and over judgment, from one party, now reacting to over judgment. Now, if your ties are too linked to that person or that group, then you are in trouble. You are in trouble. And it's only until you actually make a change and maybe at some point take a break that you can actually move forward and take steps to actually improve the areas of your life that you want to improve.
Yeah, because what I think happens is people are so worried about judgment from people that are not really their friends. They don't have that much of an impact in their life. And that is a very dangerous game to play. So you're actually trying to impress people who you probably don't even really like. Your friendship is only based on speech. That's what your whole friendship is based on. And that isn't going to hold you in good stead for life, because if you do decide to leave that certain program or not attend any of those courses, are you ever going to hear from that person?
Very, very true. Very, very true. And the same could be applied in school. It's very high school type mentality, but that should all be left behind when you leave that part of your life, when you leave school, because when you get into your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, etc., who's got time for that stuff? Chris, so we've been coming on here every day. When did you last have a haircut? When did I last have a haircut as well?
Oh,
it's getting ridiculous, man. And even though it looks like it's intact, trust me, 10 minutes before this podcast starts, I'm upstairs trying to tame this thing, because the whole day it's just been raggo. Seriously. Sorry, yeah, go on, man.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with us, with people, human beings in general, is how we judge ourselves. Because we've had these experiences with other people, and we predict how people will judge us, and then we judge ourselves. And that actually, especially for myself in my own experience, has caused me a lot of problems. And I think this is why I've rebelled so much, because I've tried to not allow my perception of other people's views on me hold me back, which if I allow sink into my head and I take these false judgments on and believe it and put it on myself and then judge myself even more. And I think a lot of people who stutter, or just human beings in general, do that, and that causes the most damage and can actually destroy your whole life, the whole trajectory of your life, if you care too much about what people think and take it in too much. And I see that in the stuttering community, people don't want to voice their opinion because they're scared of upsetting a Facebook friend who they've never met inside the stuttering community, because that's all they have, and that is very dangerous.
I was going to ask you as well, bro. So yeah, you were saying how you're quite vocal, etc., and people they saw you as a rebel. But were you a rebel because you were doing some rebellious things, or were you a rebel because you were just not going in line with the status quo? But that's two different things. that's two different things in my own opinion. Like you actually rebelling and kind of causing trouble versus doing something different that they don't agree with, but still staying in line with the framework of the rules of the game. Which of the two do you think you were in? The actual rebellious actions, or just doing something different that they just didn't like?
How I view it is, I was just trying to help people, man. I don't really know. I got attached to the rebel after a while, and I guess I latched onto that because people were calling me that, and I thought, that's cool, I am the rebel. But really and truly, I just wanted to help people. Honestly, swear to God, nothing else. I just saw people that were suffering. Literally, people were suffering, man. They did not get the support. And I knew they did not have the same mentality that I have, where I don't really I need support like everyone else. Definitely, I couldn't do this without you guys. But I need far less support than I think a lot of people do. And they can't do it on their own. They can't make it. They can't make the cut. So I was trying to save everyone, trying to save everyone. Because I was doing so much so quickly, the people who had the power to do that, they thought I was trying to take over or trying to make a name for myself in the community just for my own branding or for myself, so I can become a celebrity in stuttering. Like I care about that. Trying to be a millionaire in life, not trying to be a celebrity in stuttering. Like, come on. Well, that's what people thought. They thought I was doing it maybe for myself, and I wasn't. I just literally, man, I was just trying to help people. I don't know.
And for some reason, like they felt maybe threatened by it. Maybe they were judging it in a different way. They felt that, hang on a minute, because they may have thought that they were doing quite a lot, but then this guy rocks up and starts. I don't know how to explain it, but I think I was there when I think I mentioned that. Oh yeah, like so-and-so has been struggling with speaking to AO, and then AO spent his weekend meeting that person, going on contacts with them. And this person was like, oh, really? Because they assumed that they were doing amazing stuff just by doing a few calls every month with that person. But someone has actually gone above and beyond to actually visit that person and walk them through. And two things started to happen as well. They may have had this opinion of you, judging you in a certain way, but you were doing stuff that contradicted that opinion. And then they may have not liked it. They may have validated it with each other. Because it's easier to judge when you are judging people with other people and you all kind of agree with that judgment.
Question for you, Ruben. If you've got people in your ear who you think you need and you do not want to lose that support network, if you've got those people in your ear telling you AO is bad, AO is doing this, AO is doing that, you ain't gonna be allowed to acknowledge anything that AO is doing because you're scared. What was happening is they instilled fear in people that were prepared to support. And I think the best analogy I can give, but it doesn't directly relate, but for example, if a new company brings out a drink, before they are even able, if they start to create a little bit of a buzz, before they're even able to get big, Coca-Cola will come and buy them out. Shut up, get out of the way, because we can't have you challenging us in any way. And I feel like because AO was beginning to build a following and people were beginning to realize that, oh my God, he's actually helping people. He's actually creating his own impact on his own. I feel like by suppressing him was the equivalent of Coca-Cola coming to buy everyone out and trying to keep him below them. Because there's risk that AO is going to go far beyond whatever they have created, regardless of what organization. There's always risk in that, and people are trying to protect their own entities here.
The funny thing is, I've mentioned some of these things to my friends, and I told them, yeah, there's like a bit of a judgment or a bit of hyper judgment within the stuttering community, and they can't really understand why, because they have this impression of us like holding hands and dancing in circles and like saying, yeah, like, come on, we're gonna say the word together, but they don't understand the dynamics and stuff. And it's pretty incredible when you tell these people brand new to people outside of the community, and they are like struggling to process it, struggling to understand why it's like that. And
yeah, great. I've told a few people that are not part of the stuttering community at all, the fluent speakers, know very little about it. I've told them about me getting chucked off the M group, and they genuinely think it is the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard in their life. They just can't get their head around it. You know, so I understand when you talk to people outside of the community, they literally think, well, you're all stutterers, all help each other. But it's just not like that.
Completely agree. And people may be wondering now, like, why I brought up this particular topic for today, and maybe in the direction where it's gone. People may be asking kind of why we're mentioning these things. However, I think it's very relevant, it's very topical, and it applies to so many people who may be listening to this podcast right now in secret or post-production on one of our platforms. And if you are, thank you very much. And the reason why kind of it's gone this certain way is because we have ourselves experienced, and most of the two of you, especially AO, this type of judgment within our own 1%. Now, if that's how things are within the 1%, I think that you're actually better off in the 99 sometimes, because you aren't going to get this level of complexity and complex judgment from Joe Blogs in the street. It is true, because in the end, when you go out and you have an interview or you order your coffee and you block, no one's going to recognize what technique you're doing or like which association you're part of, or make an assessment.
Exactly, Ruben. No one cares.
No one really cares. No one really cares. And the more you involve yourself in politics and this toxic dynamic within the stuttering community, you start to warp the way you think about people outside. It starts to warp the way you think. Because one way to explain it is like I'm Asian, so I'm more of a Tamil origin, which is a region in North Sri Lanka. Now, there aren't that many of us here in the UK, but even within the Asian community, so you've got Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and Sri Lankan Tamils, etc. There are like racial tensions between them. I'm just thinking, what is wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people? Because like from the outsider in, we're all the same. We're all the same. It doesn't matter like what shade of brown you are, you're still brown. And that's the bottom line. And that's what people need to realize. It doesn't matter which kind of association or which program or wherever you're on. If you are all pointing in different ways, then you aren't going to survive. Honestly, you aren't going to survive. And that's why we always say at SHB, webinars, meetups, anyone can come. It's all good. And if you don't want like us to share your presence on our forums, that's fine with us. But please come and try to gain something from it. However, you not sharing your presence is actually holding you back. And that's going to play an element on on how far you can push your speech. Because if you're uncomfortable showing yourself on a forum with people who stutter, maybe associating yourself with SHB, then there's a deeper problem within your support network. Much deeper problem.
Just wanna contribute to that. I wanna add to that actually. If you're a person who stutters and you're working on your speech, using all these different techniques, and then you fall off, like myself, I fell off and I struggled for a long time, and I'm still struggling a little bit now. I'm on the way up. But we stop pulling back. I know I can be back to square one, blocking all over the place, out of control, really struggling. I know I can talk to Ruben, Chris, Simon, lots of other people who are part of Stop Holding Back, and have full confidence that they will not judge me or tell me off. They would actually support me and help me get back. Chris and Ruben have been pushing me for ages to come on this podcast and practice and speak and become a better speaker and just be myself, get to my old self. And I can see how they've improved so much in their confidence and just how they speak. You will not get that on so many, I'm going to say, on any other program. I haven't seen it. I've just seen people complain behind closed doors, complain about their support systems to us and ask for us for support. But they're too afraid of losing what they have because they're not allowed to venture out. So all I want to say, to cut a long story short, if you're on a program that does not support you in the good time, does not support you in the bad times as well as the good times, you really need to think about your own best interests long term, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Where do you want to be? And is the current program going to help you get to that point? Because if it ain't, you have to take responsibility and make a decision, or you're going to suffer in the end. And that's the decision I made and why I left that program, because I would have suffered long term if I didn't try to branch out and help myself more. It's not easy to do. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you might not suffer in the short term, but in the long term, you will probably do better.
I'm going to say a quick line, and then I'm going to hand over back to the two of you to react to that line and give your take and maybe your own insight and experience. So regardless of what we hope and we think, people, no matter what, are going to judge. And more often than not, it will be slightly or mostly on the negative side. We can't control that, but the only thing we can control is how we react and how we conduct ourselves off that judgment. Gone. Anything. CJ. CJ.
Yeah, all we can control is how we respond to it. That is plain and simple. We can't be allowing people's judgment. My opinion is, who am I to judge Ayo if he's struggling with his speech when I know for certain everyone is vulnerable to slipping off again? I know that. I've seen loads of people who I thought were up here and I thought, wow, I'm never going to be able to talk like them. I've seen them slip off. But it ain't the end of the world, because they're capable of putting in the work again and getting back up there. I've been up here with my speech. I've done crazy things that I never thought I was ever going to be able to do. But I fell off with my speech and I needed help. And I know that all these people that judge people have been in that situation as well. But for some reason, it could potentially give them some type of satisfaction to be able to judge someone else. But who is that helping? Does that really help you? Deep down, is that really helping you with your speech? So what is the point? I'm getting calls from people telling me, I'm calling you, but can we have this conversation in confidence, because I don't want to ring them because of the way that they might react to the way my speech is. And I'm like, are you listening to what you're saying here? You're scared to block. And I remember AO saying it in a certain environment, saying, I know that people are scared to block in front of us. And he got ruined for that line. AO got absolutely ruined for that line. But we've set up Stop Holding Back, and it's proving that AO was right. Because I would say the majority of our calls during the lockdown have been exactly that. AO, Ruben, correct me if I'm wrong.
Exactly that. And if you're listening, please take me off your phone list, because I feel bad just telling people that, look, I can't really speak to you and help you now because I'm not part of this forum anymore. I can direct you to whoever can help you. One thing I want to say is, with regards to some of those statements you said, like that judgment, being afraid to open up and reveal that you're having struggles, is that more a problem on the person maybe as well, because they have they given off an impression of a completed transformation story? Because we've all seen those gym pictures before and after, but have you ever seen like the after picture and then after that? Because it isn't linear. It isn't like, this is how I am before, this is how I am now. What happens afterwards? And because you have risen to a certain height and a certain perception and impression you're giving off, do you not want to burst that bubble to start again? Because you're just in denial and you have this persona within your own friends and family or community or group of stuttering that you're part of. What is, like, is that the fault of the community or the person, or both?
I think it's potentially the fault of both, but as you know, what the pressure is like to offer testimonials pretty much immediately. You know what that pressure is like, Ruben. I know that you've been through that. You know that you're not on a program and you get called for a testimonial a year later. That hasn't ever happened to you. I know that for sure. But you will get called for a testimonial a day after. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a bit of both. But the individual has to look at themselves and say, but I've paid for a service here and I want your help now. So I'm not concerned about your judgment now. I need to get out of it what I need to get out of it now. There's ongoing support with all these programs. So you need to take advantage of it. You need to put aside worry of being judged, worry of their reaction, because we drum it into everyone to desensitize yourself from people's reactions. But you're telling me that you can't desensitize yourself from reactions in the stuttering community. It's terrible. So I think the individual has to take responsibility. And by that, I mean a few things. You need to choose where your best interests lie. And you need to just have no pride, swallow your pride, and just contact them and say, I need help again, and see what reaction you get out of them.
Completely agree. And we can all probably say that we have felt pride at certain times, and it takes a big person to actually put that behind you. And we spoke about this yesterday as well, Chris. And now I made the point how even Jordan Peterson, cutting edge of psychology in the world, he's a leader. And even he identified himself as he had a problem, and he admitted himself to therapy. So if he can do it, then you got no excuse, zero excuses, because he's under fire. If you listen to all his interviews and every talk he goes to, people come prepared with notes to take him down. People come because they want to argue, that they invite him down to actually bring him down and get it filmed and share it. But he's there like battling people off. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be good to bring up this topic now, because we have mentioned different things about positive things within different communities and the different dynamics in politics, different communities, our speech, our personalities, what we have to do to improve ourselves. Now, this is a big part of it. This is a massive part of it. And this is probably one of the most important parts of it, which is understanding like where your priorities are. Where your priorities are. Where are you trying to live your life to impress people, or live your life to take your life forward? Closing thoughts, guys. Closing thoughts.
I think the community also has a part to play with testimonials and showing people after however how long, and then using that to I guess say that stuttering can be reduced quite quickly in a set period of time. So I do think certain communities within a stuttering community need to also take responsibility. That's what I want to say on that.
CJ, last words before we make our closing remarks and put this one away.
Yeah, I agree with what AO said. To be honest, there needs to be less pressure on the individuals. They need to have more freedom to find their way once they've decided to intervene with their speech, rather than get short-term gains and then have to plaster themselves all over Facebook and newspapers and all this kind of stuff. They haven't even figured out what they're trying to achieve with this newfound technique or way of speaking. So people need to work that out first, and then they can experience a blip and work on it, rather than feel like, oh, I've come all this way and now I've dropped, because that's quite demoralizing for the individual.
Without a doubt, and you end up putting pressure on people maybe before they're ready to actually to do that kind of stuff, because you don't know how they're going to react afterwards when the blip will come. It's not about if, it's about when. And if you aren't there to actually help them through that blip, then I'm sorry, you aren't doing your job at all. But yeah, this episode was about judgment. We could have talked about kind of people giving you funny looks in the queue at Costa or Caffè Nero, or ordering at a restaurant, going on a date with someone. But this actually took it a step further, because these are the complexities that people within the stuttering community have to deal with. And compare this to actually real world judgment, it's on a different level. Now, if you can actually break this judgment cycle, this persona that you created, or break this barrier between you and your group and your coach, and actually rise above the judgment, imagine how you're going to be outside. in the real world, you will not care and you will start flying. And that's what I've got to say, because if you are trying to satisfy these people, the wrong people, then that's all you'll be doing for the rest of your life. It sounds extreme me saying that, but it's so true. It's so true. But guys, I think we've reached time. And thank you both for coming here, discussing and sharing your stories. I know how much you love talking about this stuff. Ayo, welcome back as well. How does it feel to be back?
Yeah, it feels like I'm working on my speech again, and I'm pushing out comfort zones. As you guys can tell, whoever watching this podcast, Chris and Ruben's speech are pretty good. Mine's not as good, but because I am stop holding back, I'm not allowing the self-judgment of me being behind them right now to stop me from being on this podcast. And that's what it's all about. You have to do things in line with your best interests, and that's it.
Cool, thank you very much, Ayo. Chris, and before we leave, just a quick kind word from Arthur Young on the Facebook comment, which when he says he's seen this in the Stuttering community for some time, hasn't changed, but the charity SHB Stop Holding Back has come a long way, which is an added bonus. So thank you very much. I think that's kind of kind words the charity has received from a certain area. So thank you very much. We actually really appreciate that.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm gonna say that's the end of episode 34. Thank you very much, Chris, as always, and Ayo. Thank you for coming back, pushing yourself. And I always say, if Ayo can take that step back and understand that he needs to work on fundamentals, then anyone can. And if he's comfortable saying it publicly, because he's the one who's always in the limelight, his face is on a dartboard, then anyone can. You got no excuse if he can. So guys, girls, ladies and gents, step up and don't hold back. Thank you very much. That's end of episode 34. I just said it again, but remember, stop holding back.